Duster is a new series that's on HBOMax or Max. Yeah, I think it rebranded this week, so I think it's HBOMax again. But anyway, and this series is by the now legendary J.J. Abrams and someone else. Someone's name I forgot. I just saw J.J. Abrams and I just went like, oh, yeah, I know. Not only that, it stars one of his alumni actors, because if you're not familiar with J.J. Abrams, I might as well say this about J.J. Abrams. I don't really like J.J. Abrams. I'm going to say this right now. I think the reason why I don't like him is a lot of the things around him. He's gotten very famous for doing this TED Talk where he talks about essentially a mystery box. This idea that you lure the audience in with something that's mysterious on your show or your movie, and maybe you don't even know what that thing is. And as a writer myself, there's a lot of times I've written a story where I've put a mystery in there and I didn't really know what the mystery was. And you, as a writer, have to figure that out. And then you have to write characters who have to actually figure that out too. And that can be pretty difficult. But one of the main things I don't really like about J.J. Abrams is he does a lot of these shows, like say Alias or Lost, and he'll contribute a little bit to them, and then he'll eventually leave the project to do something else. And then, and it seems like everybody seems to want to rent him out. I mean, he's done a Mission Impossible movie, where in fact he had a mystery box, this MacGuffin device known as Rabbit's Foot, that was never revealed as far as what it was supposed to do. And then of course he's done Star Trek, which, alright, it was alright. I mean, hey, it was interesting what he was trying to do with that Kelvin timeline. I'm told they're still kind of maybe thinking about doing another one of those, but Into Darkness really sucked. And then he was given the reins to Star Wars, and he did The Force Awakens, which was received pretty well. But then he had to end up doing Episode 9, and Episode 9 really crashed and burned on him. And I think this is kind of the weakness of J.J. Abrams, is he starts these things and doesn't give them a really good finish. Now, here's the problem I have with Duster, and I know I really talked a lot about J.J. Abrams there. The problem I have with Duster is I don't really think this is a good start. But you know what is a good start? The title sequence. Oh my gosh. If you watch Duster, just watch the title sequence. For the title sequence, they decided to do this thing where they kind of have like little Matchbox cars or Hot Wheels cars, and they're kind of like doing this like kind of chase scene, and there's even a part where it goes through a loop, and I went like, wow, this is awesome! This is the show I want to watch! Did he pitch the show like this, and then he had to come up with some other thing? Well, here's the thing. It's kind of like when I was a kid, I used to watch, I used to like flip through channels. I would see shows like Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie, which had this animated opening, but then you actually watch the show and it was done in live action. And as a kid, when you really want to watch cartoons, that's kind of a shutdown. So Duster, Duster is clearly trying to be one of those shows from the 70s and 80s, which had a lot of car chase scenes. And I'll bet you anything J.J. Abrams probably grew up on a lot of those type of shows. Talking about shows like Chips, Dukes of Hazzard, Starsky and Hutch. I mean, those shows were really all the rage back then. And it's a type of show that we don't really have these days. Even though we have streaming services that have that can make a lot bigger budget shows, I still find it odd that back in the 70s and 80s, they were making shows like that, I mean, they really were. They had a shoestring budget on television back then, but they were still making shows where cars would just get crushed and exploded and stuff like that. And you were guaranteed like some action during your, we just don't really see that anymore. These action-oriented cop-type shows and stuff like that. Okay, maybe not cops and stuff like that. So what's Duster actually about? Well, it's about a duster. Essentially, the main character, played by Josh Holloway, who you might recognize from Lost. He played the character of Sawyer. And essentially, this character, or this actor, is kind of stuck in this role. He tends to play this kind of con man, slimy guy in every film he's in. I think there was a show on called The Colony, which I remember he was the lead on, but honestly, I really couldn't look at him without seeing Sawyer. And I think this actor kind of knows this, so I think they kind of have scripts that are sort of targeted for this guy, and I hope so, because he's a pretty good actor, and I don't know what he's like in real life, but I get the feeling like you ever notice like there are certain actors that you see in several things and you think like, yeah, he's probably like that in real life, isn't he? And yeah, so I kind of feel like this guy's kind of a character actor. Kind of like what Jack Nicholson is probably like in real life. Yeah, this guy is very similar to it. He's just kind of like, hey, he's kind of going through his life and stuff like that, and getting himself into kind of bad stuff. So yeah, the main character drives this duster, and he works for this crime lord who's played by Keith David, who, if you're not familiar with that name, you really should be. He's been in like so many things, and he always gives his 100% in every performance. This is a great guy. I've actually seen him in real life once at a conference, but didn't exactly stand in line for his autograph and didn't have any money for the picture that I think I would have had to do in order to do that. So anyway, so he works doing like stuff for this crime lord guy. In this show, I think he has to like bribe a union leader or something like that. So he gets some like pictures of him in a very compromising position, so to speak. And yeah, this is an HBO show, so there's a lot of swearing and sex on this show. So yeah, very different from what J.J. Abrams usually does on his network television shows. A little bit of a surprise there, but not too much of a surprise. It's an HBO show. You do stuff like that. Nowadays, television doesn't care about language and violence and stuff like that. They really don't now. So yeah, this is kind of like an updated 70s, 80s show. Here's the thing though, a lot of it I just found rather boring. I just kind of like went like, okay, so I think the seed of the idea here, as far as what the show is going to happen, or what is probably happening on the show, is that Josh Holloway's character is feeling he doesn't really want to work for this crime lord anymore. I think he realizes where it's going to take him, which is probably going to be not a good end. And apparently he had a brother or something like that. And he actually has a niece. And you see him with his niece at the beginning, and he has a good relationship with the niece. And he gets in a car chase with her, for crying out loud. So, with the niece like sitting in the passenger seat. That's what I mean. Not the niece is chasing him. Stuff like that. The car chase scene feels rather, I don't even know why it's even there. It's just kind of there. And this guy's first job, you see him actually pick up a heart, like a human heart, and then the crime lord's son was apparently needed a heart or something, so they have to like get everybody in there. So also, I don't really think that Josh Holloway's character is really the main character. I think the main character is this one lady, an agent from Baltimore, who was given this case to find this crime lord guy, the one that Keith David plays. And she's essentially tracking him down, and I think this is like her big case. And she's a black woman, and so this is in the 70s, so she's not really given a lot of respect the moment she steps in the office, which is a real shame. And I think her boss is Greg Grunberg. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but this is an actor who has been in a lot of J.J. Abrams films. He was in Alias, and he was also in the latest Star Wars trilogy that J.J. Abrams had his hand in. So yeah, you can see kind of like J.J. Abrams' handprints are like all over this dang thing, which might be to its detriment. So getting into spoilers here, since we're about to hit the 9-minute mark, essentially this agent manages to turn Josh Holloway's character into a CI, a confidential informant. So now Josh Holloway's character is going to be working against the crime lord. This is actually kind of a good, I don't really know if I've seen this type of scenario set up. This feels like a very familiar scenario. Now, it's possible that they could really do a lot with the relationship between them two, and not, I've just thought that they might have a romantic relationship, and I really don't like that idea. But as far as the professional relationship between these two, where they're having to go back and forth, I don't really know how many seasons you can possibly squeeze out of this idea. And remember I said that J.J. Abrams' weakness is he tends to start big, but then finish weak? And I feel like that could easily happen to this show. And honestly, I didn't really feel like this show had a very strong beginning. So I'm going to have to say, like, maybe you should watch it for the title sequence. Yeah, just watch that title sequence, dude. Just, in fact, do a YouTube search for that title sequence. It's awesome. I wish the whole show was like that. Too bad it isn't. I wonder if he pitched the show like that. I think I've already made that comment. But anyway, you might like Duster if you are fond of those old action car chase 70s and 80s show. Yeah.